Welcome back, everybody. Got a new episode of Taking a Break with Gen X Jace and Rational Boomer, Boomer 2. And Mike, it got about down to 14 down here last night, so I bet it was pretty cold up in your area.
Yeah, it was probably zero, a little lower than zero. You know, as much as that is cold as fuck, it's not unprecedented in January in this state. It gets cold as a motherfucker sometimes. Maybe not as cold as it used to be, but as I get older, I'm having more trouble dealing with it. So being retired, I have the opportunity to make an important decision. Don't go fucking outside when it's zero. And so I don't frequently. I did to go to the grocery store last night, and my wife says, "Well, when you get back, maybe we'll go out to dinner." I got back from the grocery store. I go, "We ain't going out to dinner. Too motherfucking cold out there." So I stayed in, and I'm still in, and it'll warm up eventually. Then I'll go outside.
Yeah, we all know that Ed is up there from Minnesota, and he's living down in Nashville or what, Tennessee area now.
East
And
Tennessee, yeah.
he's moving back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like that would be my decision. Do I want to live in a red state that's warm, or do I want to freeze my balls off in a blue state and they turn blue too? So it's like, yeah, I might. I'm looking at moving out of tech when I retire. I got about a little over 6 years when I hit 60, getting a full pension. I'm still going to work because they fucking in time I'm 60, they'll probably move up Social Security to 70. It's 67 now, but I'll be working because I got the quarters for Social Security, but working into it, I could probably do something part time. But I'm looking at moving, and I was watching the Seattle, Seattle and San Francisco game last night, and it was a blowout. Seattle just walked all over them, 41-6. But they showed the skyline over about Seattle, and then you look at that, and you look at San Francisco, and I'm like thinking I could live at those two places. Then I like heard about well, the fucking rent and the taxes are just like really high. But I think with anything with the blue state, I think you get a lot of, right wing nonsense about you can't afford it or whatever. But I've done my research. California, Washington, some of those warmer blue states. They're not. There's always places you can live, and it won't be like necessarily a bad area. So, like I said, I'm looking at doing that, and because I just think Texas is just beyond. I'm just not optimistic. But I do like my warmth, and I when I went to Ohio, I really liked Cincinnati. Nice city, seemed like a big city, but a nice city.
Yeah.
But and they got this thing called winter, and it's just, and I've seen stuff frozen, so it's just I lived in Missouri as a kid, and that was enough for me.
I think I have the best of both worlds at this point at retirement. I live in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is where I grew up. All my family's here. People I know are here. It has its upside and it has its downsides, but it's home.
Yeah.
Um, but then we have a place in Savannah, Georgia. It's kind of a smaller town, warmer town. I can go there anytime I need a break from this bullshit. So I feel pretty balanced at this point. I don't have a desire to move someplace else. As long as my grandkids are in the Minneapolis area, I'm going to be here a lot. There's just no question about that. But to get away and, I went down to Savannah and it was 65 degrees, got down to 50, 45 at night. People were complaining. I go, if this were noon in Minnesota today, this would be fucking spring. So just lighten up.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine coming down from Ohio, and he's coming down, and like he was said he was flying out there, and it's like, all these kind of blizzard conditions. He's flying out of Detroit, and I said, yeah, he'll probably just get on the plane with, flip-flops and shorts down here, because that's like a nice summer day for people up in Ohio and Michigan.
Yeah,
But
no shit.
yeah, I don't know. Georgia looks like a thing too, because Georgia looks like they may be a little bit more purple than, other things. So maybe Georgia has some thing, because I think their senator is up by big time. Not the one that's running. He's up like 14 points.
Ossoff. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
Ossoff.
some hope for Georgia. So I'm gonna have to give Will a call and see if I can, he got any good properties up there. I'll give him about 6 years though, so I still got time. So maybe there's
Well,
time for Texas. I'm like you said, I'm optimistic. So Jasmine or Tallarico wins. Hey man, things are changing down here. I can
well,
feel it.
I will tell you this about Savannah, Georgia. Savannah is a blue area. There are some pockets of red state dumb fucks in there. But here's the interesting thing about Savannah. Savannah is 58% black, 38% white, and then there's a mixture of other folks there too. And all these people who keep telling me, oh, what if you're in the minority? What if white people are in the minority? I go to Savannah, I'm in the minority. And you know what? These are the fucking nicest, best people I've ever seen. I've never had a bad experience with anybody in Savannah, whether they be black or white. If that is what it, if that what happens when whites are in the minority, I'll take it all over the fucking country. Fuck you, white supremacists.
Well, growing up in Texas, especially South Texas and McAllen, right there on the border where I grew up when I was the minority. So I never had a problem with it. And I don't know, it's just, I guess I never looked at it that way because, at least on my mom's side, I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to, I guess she was what you call woke. So she wasn't a racist. But my best friends were Hispanic. I mean, to this day, I have more Hispanic friends than I do white friends. So if you can judge, there's an Aerosmith song, Living on the Edge. If you can judge a wise man by the color of his skin, you're a better man than me. I mean, it's a fucking skin color. And I mean, if we were all the same color and everything, they would, discriminate against me and you because we're so goddamn handsome. So I mean, we can't fucking win anyway, man. I mean, it's just, there'll always be something. Well, that guy's shorter, that guy's fatter. I mean, it's like, I think people are inherently I don't think they're inherently racist. I think they're raised that way because you look at little kids, they don't give a fuck. I mean, it's a taught thing. It's not something that you're born with. I never thought so.
Look at skin color the same way as I look at hair color, eye color, height, weight. It's all an aesthetic. It's
Yeah.
all an aesthetic. Uh, Now, of course, when you're talking with somebody of that's African American and there's black culture and there's white culture, the only reason there is a black culture and a white culture is because of the racist motherfuckers that see the difference. Um, I have black people that live in my community and their lives are similar to mine.
Yeah.
Uh, the reason there was any difference between the cultures was because, when I grew up in the 60s, early 70s, there was fucking racism rampant and it was accepted. Of
Yes, it was.
course, their culture is different. And I respect them for going through that bullshit and still coming out the other side. Yeah, I don't know. That's the one thing about we talk about entertainment and music. And while racism is rampant in both of those things, we see people um, come through and break the barriers if they happen to be exceptionally talented or original or inventive. You were going to talk about maybe the times we're going through now and how music has kind of had an effect on trials and tribulations in this country in the past.
Yeah. One of your texters on your Substack Live mentioned Wind of Change by the rock band The Scorpions. They're actually a German band. They've been around since like the late 60s, and they're still actually, I think they're playing a Vegas residency now. I mean, I think they got
Wow.
a oxygen mask and wheelchair standing by, but they're out there playing and people are going. I had a cousin of mine that actually posted on Facebook that she went and like, oh wow, I haven't seen the Scorpions since God, I saw them in the 90s and I was still in high school. But they're a good fun rock band. They've been around for a while, but in the late 80s, of course we had, Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev, bringing help, into the Russian Russia as we knew it, the Soviet Union as we knew it. And Germany, for those who don't remember, there used to be a wall between, was it Russia and Germany or was it Germany? I mean, I remember what happened, but I really,
Well, the wall was between East and West Germany.
correct. And you had
People on the
families
east side
separated.
were behind the wall, and west were free. And I assume Russia had control of the east because it was a communistic type thing. Yeah. So, but it was cutting Germany in half essentially.
Yeah, and it's just amazing. Like today, uh, Orange Man wants to build a wall and build many walls, and back then, the leader of the Republican Party told the Russian guy to tear it down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember hearing horror stories about that, about how I haven't seen my family in so many years because of this fucking wall. And they had armed guards there and everything, but it did eventually fall. And I remember there being so many songs about it coming out. And one of them was a song by the Scorpions called Wind of Change. and it was that song was based it was kind of inspired by the wall falling, but it was also inspired by something that happened a year late earlier in Russia. It was the Moscow Music Peace Festival. And during that time, you had a lot of bands that were popular during the day, such as Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Cinderella, Scorpions, Skid Row, Ozzy Osbourne. You had a lot of them, and what this was is what Doc McGee. He's a manager that he got busted for drug trafficking. So he had to make a deal with the Justice Department back when they used to actually prosecute criminals um, to put on a show, and they were going to do this in Russia. So what they did is this is around 89, and of course MTV was all over it. So there was an album that was put out called Stairway to Heaven, Highway to Hell about it was all these a lot of these bands that were popular in the day were doing covers by artists that had died, like with like Keith Moon from The Who. They did Scorpions did I Can't Explain. Cinderella did a that Janis Joplin song, Piece of My Heart, and just other ones. But what they did is that, whoever was smart about this, they got all these rock stars and got them on a plane, a couple of jumbo jets, and flew them to Russia. Well, evidently, a lot of these rock stars it's the 80s, and they were fucked up and on drugs. And there was like one band that just got sober that was Motley Crue. So they were doing this thing to Doc McGee to get out of this stuff. They were talking, pushing, anti-drug stuff, and they were all fucked up. So I saw a preview on there where it's like, of course, they were walking about Russia. And they were showing how Russians were, and it was an eye opener. I mean, here we are in America. We can come and go as we want. We can go to the grocery store. We can do what you want. But these people, I mean, they have to wait in bread lines. I mean, it exposed what, communism was doing, and that, hey, we're America, we're better, and in that aspect we were. But what gets me about it, they had all these bands up there and they were playing. They played for like thousands of people. This was huge. And I remember seeing an interview with John Bon Jovi, and he was talking about how Russia, which is so great, they flew them in there. They had, of course, they had soldiers and armed guards everywhere, but they lit like some torches and these stadiums, and they were playing in front of these people. And one of the first singers band was called Skid Row, and they were kind of a young band. And they're saying, yeah, they greet us and everything. And what do? We give them Sebastian, which was the lead singer. So he's out there, people are going, and he goes, check this out, motherfuckers. I mean, it was just, totally rock and roll. But, it was amazing that got me about it is that the people knew the words. They knew, I mean, it's like, here's a communist country where music, it's outlawed. You can't have anything without, everything, it's a black market, but it just showed you there was a black market. And what was the biggest eye opener that they had all these bands out there. Bon Jovi was probably the biggest band in the world around the late 80s. You remember, Bon Jovi. They were probably one of the biggest bands, but you know who the Russians went the most crazy for?
Oh,
Ozzy Osbourne, which makes sense because Black Sabbath had been around since the late 60s. So
right.
Russia, they knew Ozzy's Black Sabbath. I mean, they treated Ozzy like he was a fucking god because he was. That's how big the power of music is. And that inspired the Scorpions to do a Wind of Change. And if you haven't ever heard that Wind of Change, I would actually suggest you look it up on YouTube or whatever, give it a change because it talks about it. It starts out with some whistling, and it sounds like kind of like an old dog commercial, like those one of those Chuck Wagon commercials. It kind of reminded me of that. But it's like Scorpions wrote that, and because it hit home, and I think that song was big. It was my senior year in high school that came out, and I think my senior song in 91 when I graduated was Right Here, Right Now, and it was by a one-hit wonder called Jesus Jones. And it was about how all this shit was happening and all this shit that, especially Gen X that we witnessed. I mean, it was, what, the boomers went through with Woodstock. It was kind of our thing. And I always rag on the boomers. How can they be all, a bunch of Bob Dylan and Grateful Dead fans and be MAGA? Well, that's what fucking happened to Gen X. I mean, Gen X voted a lot
Yeah.
for that guy too, even though we voted for Clinton. And you just see all that shit, and you just celebrate that freedom. And you look at what we're doing now, and I know this is not supposed to be a political show, but fuck, that's where we're headed. And I mean, and if you don't think that the ones in charge now want like a East Germany, type government, I mean, just fucking pay attention.
Well, this isn't a political show, but unfortunately, everything in this world for a long time, everything is political. You talk about this music, and that was political. If you
Yeah.
look back to the 60s with Woodstock or Monterey or whatever was going on, everything was pretty political then. There were a lot of protest songs. It's all about culture. When you're in your teens and early 20s, you're about peace and love. And then when you get some money and some authority and you've got some kids behind you, now you're into protecting your shit. You have a changed attitude. And if I've accomplished anything in my life, the thing I'm most content with is that when I was younger, I was a testosterone filled, low intellect guy like all 20-year-old kids, and I maybe didn't have the best attitudes. But as I've grown older and I've had a family and seen things going on, I think I've become a better person because I understand it's not all about me. It's
Yeah.
not about all I can grab. And whether you agree with me or not, um, that's fine. But unfortunately, we have some lower and evolved people in this country where they just get more selfish and more greedy as time goes by. And when they once cried about love, peace, and understanding, now they're going, fuck it, I'm keeping my shit and stay away from me. And if you come near me, you're a communist. And this, this is how people are raised. This is how they perceive things. This is because they're full of fear. They're full of fear that somebody's going to take their shit away from them. So now that's why they become, boomers and Gen Xers become that way. One of the happiest moments in my life was when I was talking to my granddaughter. And I said to her, she was talking about something, a bad dream or something. And I said, Junie, what are you afraid of? She looks at me and goes, Grandpa, I'm not afraid of nothing. I go, you go, girl. That's what it is. As long as you don't have fear, you're going to be fucking fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you kind of look at it too, because like that same, I mean, it was like a year later that, you even look at like Iran. A few years ago, they had something that they were interviewing the younger generation about America. They don't hate America. They like their blue jeans, they like their CDs. It's not the people. It's the establishment that's running the country. And you look back at Iran and they were real progressive at one time before, the 78 takeover or 70s takeover, whenever it was. But I mean, you look at the people, but and I read somewhere that they've killed like 20,000 people so far. There's rumors of that. And it tells you right there how scared the establishment is. I say establishment, that's being kind. The freaking people that are in control are scared of that. And they want to keep people down. But I think with technology, I don't think that's going to be sustainable. I mean, you say that about here, about how, they want to declare martial law and all that stuff. There's too many of us.
Yeah.
And especially with Iran, they're not as spread out as we are. I mean, the British colonies tried to do that. I was watching that thing on with Ken Burns talking about the original the colonies, the Revolutionary War, how they didn't want us to go beyond certain the British didn't want us to go beyond certain things because they knew that if we multiplied and spread out, we'd be a harder force to take over. So that's why,
Right.
they did that. And that's what they're going to do here. But if anything, and I will always say this, what brought down the Berlin Wall was rock and roll because it was, Neil Young. It was all these artists, besides, the bands I was just talking about early, but it was like Neil Young had a song called Rockin' in the Free World. I mean, music's a universal language, and that's why they can do these USA for Africa's, We Are the World. They can do that. Do they know it's Christmas? They can do these things, and it's a universal, and that's why they make millions of dollars, is because Hell, even Bono from U2 knew that it was power because he got a lot of shit, but he got George Bush to do a lot of aid for Africa. I mean,
Yeah,
George Bush saved a lot of lives with the aid he gave with AIDS related, and he got a lot of shit for that, but he saw the bigger cause. And music speaks languages. Like I said, they had all those people there. They didn't necessarily know a lot of the bands, but they knew Ozzy. They knew Ozzy because they listened to that, and they didn't know a bit of English, but they probably could fucking sing Iron Man back to you. I mean, that's awesome.
it is awesome. I think music has been responsible for a lot of positive things. I think music indirectly ended the Vietnam War by inspiring the young people, the protesters, the hippies. Those protests are what stopped and applied the pressure to get the Vietnam War ended. Um, it had a lot to do with um, Nixon resigning. It wasn't just the pressures in Washington, D.C. I'll tell you what the big lie is in this world, and we've been lied to for a long time in this country. I'm growing up in the 60s and 70s, and Russia is this horrible archenemy of ours, a power that's just trying to kill us, that everybody in Russia is terrible.
Yeah,
We're finding out now it isn't the Russian people. The Russian people just want peace. They want to get by. They want to live. They want to feed their families just like everybody else. It wasn't the Russian people, it was the leadership. Same thing with, say, North Korea. Those people aren't necessarily bad. Their their authority, their leaders are. Same with Israel. Every time I say something bad about Israel, they go, "Oh, you're an anti-Semite." No, motherfucker, I'm not an anti-Semite. I know plenty of Jewish people. I have no malice toward them. They're just like everybody else to me. But your leadership sucks.
yeah,
And now I can say I can speak from some experience because you see Donald Trump and the stupid shit he does. Some people might lead you to believe that we're all like that. I guarantee you 75, 80% of this country are nothing like that. So you
correct.
can't judge us based on the access of power that we have in this country. Uh, I think generally people are good people. And that's where music kind of melds it together. You like a song, I like a song. We come from different generations, different experiences, but we can relate that that's good or that says something to us. And you're absolutely right about it. And that's the only thing I'm concerned about right now. If you look in the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s to a certain extent, music was part of the culture. Now I kind of feel like music, and I'm not saying all music because I'm not following music as like I once did, but I'm um, I look at some music today and it's like buying a Twinkie. Ah, that Twinkie's good. I'm happy when I'm eating the Twinkie, but when it's done, it doesn't really mean anything. It's gone. You just throw the packaging away. We have more throwaway music now than I think we used to, and we need more heart and soul and the idea of people coming up with AI music. That's where it falls off. There is no soul to it. It's just a poppy sound that makes you feel good for the moment. You finish the Twinkie and you forget about it. And there are songs that were done in the 60s that not only we don't forget about, but apply to today. For example, for what it's worth. That song that came out was it Buffalo Springfield? Hey, stop! What's that sound? Everybody, what's going down? That
Yep.
um, I don't see the songs like that currently, and maybe it's because I'm too old and I don't hear them. But I don't see the same kind of culture in music. It's become more of a business than an art.
Oh yeah. It's I will disagree with you on one part. I do see it, but I see it for all the wrong reasons, and I see it in what they call country music,
Okay.
because you have a lot of the back then, it's funny when you listen to the you listen to like Waylon Jennings and you listen to Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson were very good friends, but they were different. They believed differently. Willie was the old school hippie, the progressive type. But Waylon Jennings was, I guess, MAGA would try to claim him, but you see these old interviews with, well, I don't know if it was more Willie, it was more, I think maybe Chris Christopherson and Waylon Jennings didn't really see eye to eye on like probably social stuff. but they both loved America. And what you're seeing a lot in the country nowadays with the Jason Aldeans, I mean, he literally came out with a song, Try That in a Small Town. And he got a lot of praise for that, and he's MAGA. And to me, that's glorifying kind of what's going on now. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of artists think that they think that their all their audience are MAGA, and I don't think that because there are a few country artists that are anti-MAGA. And I think Luke Combs is one of them that is a big artist that they aren't necessarily singing the MAGA thing like Jason Aldean. And now they're doing some kind of festival with like Kid Rock and Jason Aldean, and it just looks horrible. But they try to put this narrative that they're oppressed, and that this is what America's about, and I don't buy that because I don't buy that because I don't think, like you said, 75% of people are against this. I think that's true. But you do have your racists out there, and you do have that. I mean, this is obviously for them, but you listen to that song about, don't let this happen in a small town, or that don't happen in a small town. That reminds me of what are they called? The sundown laws they used to have,
Yeah.
that you don't want to be on this side of town or this side of the tracks or something. And I grew up, I grew up and I heard the racist stuff growing up, and stuff like that. But the artists that I listened to, Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard in country, they weren't that way. Not the way this stuff is now.
The important thing you have to understand when we talk about right, Republican, or conservative, while they call that right conservative right now, it's nothing like it once was. Granted,
Yeah.
back in the day when there were real country people or anybody that stood for the right, it wasn't something you necessarily agreed with, but they didn't agree with invading cities and killing innocent people. Conservatism was a different thing. I dare to say there is no conservatism anymore. If when Donald Trump is president, you add $7 trillion to the debt, that's contrary to what they espouse. So the right and the conservatism of that era does not no longer exist. And if you support it, you're supporting something that is fascist, frankly. And you take a look at Jason Aldean. He talks about don't do that in a small town. He was born in Macon, Georgia, a couple 100,000 people in there. That's hardly a small town.
Yeah.
Kid Rock comes from a suburb of Detroit, and his dad was very wealthy. This fucking kid probably never wore jeans and a backwards cap while he was growing up. He was probably wearing a preppy outfit. See, that's the problem. Is when you saw some bands of the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, they were true to who they were. These fuckers have co-opted images to make money. They didn't grow up in small towns. They didn't have nothing. Now, there are some out there that do. But if you can sit and see what's going on, this is what I've said about Trump supporters. If you voted for him in 2016, okay, you're a dumbass. But if you voted for him in 20 and 2024, you're irredeemable. You're all on board with fascism. You're all on board with racism, sexism, and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm saying. It's all about the grift. Everything's about the grift these days, whether it become TV shows or movies or music. Every so often you see something that's true, but we're seeing less and less that's true in this country anymore.
Yeah, and I think, you talk about rock and roll starting, the Vietnam War. I mean, God, I mean, if you have ever wanted to describe a Donald Trump, listen to Fortunate Son
Yeah,
by Creedence.
absolutely.
That is him to a T. You know what I mean? He, they'll send your or my kid to the front lines, but
And the
not
rich kid.
the ones with, bone spurs. And it's just those people that, grew up, chanting CCR can get behind a wannabe fascist. And it's just like, it just amazes me. And I see that too. It's like, I think also what kind of hurt the conservatives and the Republicans is that rock and roll was cool and they tried to adapt to that. It goes back to when Reagan was, using Born in the USA Born in the USA to his campaigns with the Springsteen song. And of course, you hear from the right, well, that's an anti-American song. No, that's not an anti-American song. That is what the Vietnam veteran went through.
Yeah.
That was Springsteen was singing. And I'm not a big Springsteen fan. He's a little too much for me. But I mean, I think the guy's authentic. He's not my thing. But I think that, when you sing about that, it probably wasn't, it wasn't popular. It wasn't like, and you look at the Republican Party currently, and they're like what 80s wrestling was. You
Really
got,
is.
you know, I saw a meme online and it was Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik. And these Russian or these US Iranian wars go way back to the 80s in my childhood. And that's exactly what it is. You have Trump, who's the quote unquote Hogan-esque good guy that still gets booed a lot, but you what they put to him is the more he's a good guy. And anybody that goes against him is just an enemy of the people, and everything. And it's like that. And it's like it's kayfabe altogether. And that's, and there's probably a big reason. And I know I might take a shot at myself because I still kind of watch pro wrestling because I like the soap opera. I mean, I don't follow it like I did when I used to, but if it's on, I mean, I don't really watch the pay-per-views, but I'll kind of watch it on TikTok and stuff. But it's like the people that probably attend the wrestling matches go to the MAGA rallies, and it's
Oh
just that
yeah.
it's just that whole thing to where even the wrestlers don't believe that shit, and I think a lot of the people that work with this administration don't really believe in it either. It's just a ways and mean to fool people, and I think rock and roll exposes that.
I do too. I'm going to tell you a story that most guys wouldn't tell, but I was a big wrestling fan when I was a kid. I think all little boys are into wrestling because it's cool and you got superheroes and all this stuff. But
Larger than life.
my brother and I on Saturdays we'd watch AWA wrestling here in Minnesota. It would be Vern Gagne, Mad Dog Vachon, Hulk Hogan started here. Some other
Oh yeah.
people started here. And because of the way they dressed, we didn't have quite the crazy costumes back in the 60s. So my brother and I would go up and we'd get our little tighty whities on, our underwear, and we'd wrestle in the living room looking like the wrestling guys. And we'd watch this all the time. Now, as I got older, I realized it's not real. It's, a lot of it's soap opera stuff. It's kind of fun to watch here and there, watch a Royal Rumble or WrestleMania or something just for the entertainment of it. But as you get older, you learn that it's not true. Then my little boys grew up and they were into wrestling. So I was kind of caught into it. And I'm going, yeah, okay, you guys like it. I get it. I liked it. But these are people who follow the Republicans at this point that never grew up, that never understood it. And I saw it when I had my sons and I would go to these wrestling matches. I'd take them to the shows and stuff like that. And there were people my age or younger or older than me that were just fucking bought into it. They believed anything that you would tell them. And I kind of laughed at them. I go, wow, these are some dumb motherfuckers. And and you're absolutely right. What we have with the Republican Party is all performance, very little truth, very little substance. And there is a faction of people that will buy into it because they will listen to anything that they may agree with, no matter how stupid it is. Um, and like you say, if we can get music or entertainment of some point, whether it be movies or something like that, telling the true story and hitting home with certain people, we can save some of them. But what I found out from wrestling, um, well, what we found out from wrestling, not everybody's going to be saved. Not everybody's smart enough. I one of the funniest things I ever saw. I was at a wrestling match with my two sons, and I'm just standing out there, and they're getting all jazzed up and whatever. And there's these two women that probably are MAGA women now, and we're at this wrestling thing, and the two women they look pretty trashy, and this was one of them. They did the snorting. Let's go get some guys. I go, good luck. You probably will find some guys in this crowd, but please stay the motherfucker away from me.
Yeah, and I think with me, I used to, I try to, it's like as I get older and I think about the decisions I made when I was a kid, and I'm honest about it. I voted Republican a few times. I voted for Bush twice. I didn't vote for Obama, which I do regret now. But the first time I voted when I got away from all that stuff. I voted for Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Even though I got to actually go see George H.W. Bush because I was going to a religious school and they took us there to try to influence us, which, they always accuse the Democrats of doing. Bush gave a nice, fine speech, and, I would take a George H.W. Bush Republican over anything that's alive now because
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
really agree with it, but it got me I got away from that and I was watching MTV and they gave Bill Clinton so much shit for going on MTV. But Bill Clinton went on there. He went on Arsenio Hall. He played the saxophone. He did stuff. Bill Clinton was a badass to me because I was like, he's not that George H.W. Bush that tries to go to the grocery store and can't fucking find his way around. I guarantee you, Bill Clinton knew his way around a grocery store, especially where the condoms were. Just saying. And the he was younger. He did it. He reached out to us. They asked him about marijuana. That was, I think if he would have said he did and he left the inhale part out, he wouldn't have had to worry about Ross Perot. He would have won in a landslide.
Yeah.
I remember going and voting for Bill Clinton, and I remember it was 1992. I was 20 years old. I turned 20 in April, and I remember that day. It was a Tuesday that I went to go vote, and I don't think he won Texas anyway, but oh, he may have. I don't remember. And I remember two things happened that day. I bought the Bon Jovi Keep the Faith album, which they cut their hair and they went kind of more serious, and I voted for the first time. And I was so proud of that I did that. And I remember him out there when they were out there and they won, they were out there with Fleetwood fucking Mac.
Yeah.
Don't Stop Believing. And this is in the 90s. This is back when the 70s were becoming cool. I mean, you don't have fucking Fleetwood Mac playing at a Trump or, granted, and even Garth Brooks, he played Biden's inauguration. But look at who Trump had. He had Carrie Underwood, who just she looks so fake to me. She's that
He does.
you look at that, she's a pop star and everything, and she's got some good songs, but she don't write them. But
No.
it's just it's disappointing to when you look at people that, would did for Biden and Obama compared to like, what they did for, Bush and, McCain and Romney. It's like I think, me voting Republican, those things, I think rock and roll brought me back because everything the Rush Limbaughs that I was listening to at the time were telling me, Metallica, Pearl Jam, they were telling me other stuff. They were not necessarily endorsing a candidate, but a lot of the stuff the Republicans were pushing that time that I was supposed to vote for were going against the social injustices that these bands that I have were thinking about. So I think rock and roll in a sense saved me too.
Well, I'm going to make an assumption here. See what you think about it. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, maybe one for many reasons,
Yeah.
but I think one of the biggest reasons is, and it's going to come into play in the upcoming election, they were cool. They related to regular people, young people. Oh, Obama's cool. He's he's put together. He says what he says. He's not shaken up. Bill Clinton, much the same thing. And I think that's what politicians have to understand in this world as it is today. It's not who has the best policies.
Yep.
It's not who is the smartest. It's the one they can relate to, that they think is cool, that they think is helpful to us. Bill Clinton did that. Obama did it. And whether they accomplished what they wanted to do or whether they fooled us, that got them elected president.
Yes.
Both of them twice. And I think we've got to look at that going into the next election. Donald Trump kind of played that same game in a different way. He was an image. He didn't have any substance. He just said things and he made people mad or scared or whatever. And a certain amount of people fell into it. So that's why I'm saying with the upcoming election, we need somebody that's kind of cool that can relate. And that's the thing about Kamala Harris. Um, she was a little robotic. And I don't think that's the way she really is. I think she was forced to do that by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party fucked up when they made her do the things she did and not just let her be herself. Um, uh, and like you say, Bill going on Arsenio Hall and playing the saxophone. A lot of Republicans laughed at that,
Yeah.
but just that act fucking killed the Republicans.
Yeah. And going on MTV and because they threw, I mean, I'll say this, and maybe it's because I was kind of on the other side, or I don't know. I don't know if they went after, I mean, they went pretty hardcore after Obama, but I don't remember them going after anybody harder than they did Bill Clinton
Oh no.
because they pretty much accused him of murder. They accused him of doing cocaine. His wife was involved with murder. And I know we talked about that the other night about, these stories we're hearing about Trump. It's hard for me to get on board without more proof because I've heard all this stuff that they've done against Clinton because Clinton was just, and I'm not trying to piss anybody off, they went after Obama pretty hardcore, but a lot of that was race.
Yeah.
I think they went after Clinton because he was that, Trump-like cult of personality that it's like they did that stuff with, they prosecute him. You hear Republicans now, say, well, you don't have any evidence on Trump to impeach him, but they fucking impeached Bill Clinton for a blowjob, and that's what it was. Ken Starr made it his life's work to destroy him,
Yeah.
and they made shit up about it. And I remember that Saturday Night Live thing where he got impeached and he survived it, and he came out on Saturday Night Live. I don't know who was the guy playing in Bill Clinton, but he did a press conference and he came out there. I am bulletproof. And the Republicans have been searching for somebody like that for the longest time. They don't give a fuck about policy. You read any of the old ex-Republicans from the Lincoln Project, and don't get me wrong, they're still Republicans, a lot of them. But like Stu Stevens is like one of the ones. He wrote a book called "It Was All a Lie," and it was true. It was all about power. There's no fucking such thing as conservatism. Yeah, you have your holdouts and everything, but you can't survive in being conservative because you can't think like it's the 60s. You've got to progress. And if you don't progress, you die.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that from my experience because yeah, I believe in these, conservative Ozzie and Harriet days and everything like that. But you also think about those times, a lot of things were segregated too. You want to stay with that? And you listen to a lot of them and they do that. Why do you think rock and roll was so vile and hated by the parents and the establishment? Because it was what they called colored music, because the
Yeah.
blacks did it. I mean, that's being a nice term for it. But even the name rock and roll was a ghetto term. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what, those people do. And they hated the fact that these bands, like the Beatles, like the Stones, Elvis, that they loved this music. The kids didn't care. They didn't care about the color of your skin. I mean, and it's you have a lot of white kids that love that black music. And why do you think they come up with the name? And we both know it's full of shit. Robert Johnson didn't sell his fucking soul to the devil. That was a
Yeah.
fucking thing made up probably by a preacher somewhere saying it's the devil's music because they do that. They did that in that movie. I don't know if you've seen it, that movie that came out last year. God, I forgot the name of it was. It was Michael B. Jordan. It was
Talking about sinners.
yeah, Sinners. I mean, that's how it was raised that the black music is the devil's music. And you had a lot of the black people saying that too because it was something started by probably some right winger racist about that happening. And that's why I think rock and roll in a sense is dead nowadays because we don't have
In a
we,
real sense, it is. Yeah.
yeah, we don't. Everything's for a profit, like you say, and I think that all started in the '80s. In the '90s, there was a little bit of a backlash with grunge, but it eventually went back to corporate, and a lot of that stuff. And you have a lot more. I think rock and roll is more alive in the bands that are on YouTube. The bands that aren't necessarily reaching a larger audience. That's the folk singers. Kind of always in the '60s with Dylan and all them. But yeah, corporate wise, it's they've constrained it to where I mean, you don't hear Carrie Underwood, you don't hear you don't hear Katy Perry coming out with a song that's going to change. You know, you hear about single ladies and my humps. That's what you hear nowadays with pop music. You don't hear it. What's happening in the wind, like you were talking about Buffalo Springsteen. There's no more Buffalo Springsteens anymore, not in this area. That's
No,
sad.
well, it is because, well, the whole music business is a different world right now. It's not the same as what it was. And some people think it's worse, but I think it's better because we had big corporations controlling the music, deciding what was going to be popular and deciding what was not going to be popular, and then robbing these people all the way, then producing this incredible music. I'm going to say something that people may disagree with me about, but in terms of the elections and in terms of coming to power, Bill Clinton was the Democrats' Donald Trump. And here's why. Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, tiny little state. He probably made the same as a middle management person in any other state. He wasn't really known. The only reason he came to power is because they had nothing else. H.W. Bush was really popular for a long period of time. But then he said, no more new taxes. And of course, taxes came, the economy went to shit. And by that time, all the real possible Republican candidates stepped out because they left when they thought there's no way we could beat Biden, so we're not going to do it. Bill Clinton sneaks in, guy out of nowhere. They got nothing else to put up, so they put him up, and he wins based on his image as opposed to based on what he was saying. The same thing happened with Donald Trump. The Republicans had nothing. They were pretty much done after Obama's second term. So they
Yeah.
had to come up with something. They didn't want Donald Trump. I'm willing to bet there are many Democrats that didn't want Bill Clinton, but it's all they had. And then when this person won the election in both cases, they say, "Okay, we're all on board now. We're
Oh
all
yeah.
on board everything because people like him, and we don't care if it's good or bad. We just care if we win." And I think the same thing happened with Bill Clinton. Fortunately, with Bill Clinton, it ended up much better than it's going to end up with Donald Trump. We see Donald Trump trying to co-opt some music to make it his own. And it's kind of unprecedented that all these musicians are saying, dude, don't play my shit with you. I don't want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, and I also with Bill Clinton, I think also too, we all often overlook is the Ross Perot factor. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
peak. Was a, I'm not so sure if Ross Perot wouldn't have pulled out the first time, he would have won that motherfucker. He was very popular,
Yeah.
and he was that. We say that couldn't happen. It happened with Trump. But if I personally believe if Bill Clinton, if there was no Ross Perot, I think Bill Clinton would have been a. I think Bill Clinton would have beat Bush just for the fact that Bush was so out of touch. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree.
I hear a lot of people say, well, if it wasn't for Ross Perot, Bush would have won. I'm not really sure about that because I think there's more Ross Perot people would have probably stayed home and it may have been about the same. But it's funny when you talk about like, war songs and everything about that. I remember back in 1991 and I remember this song coming out and I was listening to of course you can tell by my shirt, I'm a big Stones fan. They're probably my second favorite group. And they had a song that came off. There was an album that they did in the early 90s. I think a senior in high school, and it was called Flashpoint. It was a 1991 album that, on the Steel Wheels tour, which I didn't get to see because they didn't play down here, and it was the Rolling Stones is when I really, really got into them again. And it's a song that came on. It's one of my favorites, and it's called High Wire. And it was released in 91. It reached number 4 in Finland, Norway, and everything, Canada. But it was a song about the Persian Gulf War. And you have these bands like the Stones that are still, even I don't know if Paul McCartney pretty much does anymore, but it seems like these bands are still. Stones came out with an album a couple years ago. They had some, good songs on them, but people don't really listen to them. But when you listen to them and what we're about to go to do, if we send people to Greenland, you think about here's some of the lyrics from the song. This came out in '91 when the height of the Persian Gulf War. We sell them missiles, we sell them tanks, we give them credit, you can call the bank. It's just a business. You can pay us in crude. Sound familiar? You love these toys, just go play out your funds. Got no pride, got no whose boots to lick. We act greedy, makes me sick, sick, six. We walk the high wire, sending the men up to the front line, hoping they don't catch the hellfire with hot guns and cold, cold ice. Is that what we're going through now? I mean, how fucking
It's,
timeless is that? And that's a
yeah,
song that's probably
absolutely.
not one of the Stones' best known songs, but it came on my it came on my Spotify playlist the other day, and I was like, motherfucker, that's still a timeless song. That shows you the greatness and greatness of the Rolling Stones. And that's a song that they could release today, probably should release today, and it would fucking have the same impact. It all goes back to money, and we can pay them in crude. What are we in Venezuela for?
Well, exactly. And we know that Donald Trump has co opted or stolen or pirated tanker ships. He sold the oil for $500 million. He put it in an offshore bank in Qatar, a country that supports terrorists, and he controls the money. Does that not sound sketchy even to Republicans?
Where's the
I mean,
outrage
it's the
about?
essence. Yeah,
Where's the
where's the outrage?
outrage of him getting that fucking jet from Qatar? I mean, it's. I mean, I know we're not to being political, but I mean, it comes to rock and roll and everything. I guess the modern day rock stars hybrid about this shit are the podcasters like you
Yeah.
and in Midas Touch. That's how we used to, in a sense, get our news from the music. And like I said, I think a lot of my music I listen to, I got away from talk radio because when you're in that right wing bubble, you wake up, watch Fox and Friends, and I'm speaking from experience, and you listen to freaking Glenn Beck, then you listen to Rush Limbaugh, then you listen to Sean Hannity, then you go home and you watch that same bullshit. So of course these people live in their own fucking bubble because they don't think for themselves, and it's like Christopher Hutchins, one of my favorite artists or authors. A lot of Christians are going, "What the fuck?" Um, he has a saying that is just if the people would do this, take the risk of thinking for yourself, you'll have much more happiness that way. Yeah, you can believe that, virgin births and, the stuff that I don't believe in necessarily, but do it for yourself. Don't listen to what Hannity tells you. I mean, anybody listens to Hannity right now is an idiot. I mean, that guy
Yeah.
is out there defending Trump, and that fucking, one of the Democratic guys goes, "Well, we wouldn't have this fucking problem if you just released the files." And then they have no file to it. Now they passed the law. This is funny. All this shit going on. I don't know if you heard this, Mike, and I know we're getting political again, but the DOJ just said that there's no senators have a right to fucking pursue us for the Epstein files, even
Yeah.
though their guy signed it with his little orange hands.
Well, and if you know anything, here's some people who said we're going to release the files. Everybody needs to know the files. Now, when they get control over it, they say we're not releasing the files. Again, I'll ask you, as a Republican, if you're listening, does that not sound weird or sketchy to you? Sounds like they're covering it up. And here's the problem, this cover up is going to cost them when this is all said and done.
So
People
too.
love to prosecute for cover ups, and this is the biggest cover up in the history of this country. You know what we don't have? I wonder what would happen if we had a Bob Dylan or Joni Mitchell or somebody of that quality in music today putting out something that's popular. You know, I look at Taylor Swift. She's immensely popular. She's a great singer, great writer. I have a lot of respect for her, but she's very careful about getting involved in the political thing. And I understand that because of the whole money situation. But we need people to come out and say, fuck it. We're going to, I don't care about the money. I don't care about this. We got to talk about the truth. I'm in a fortunate position with my podcast. I'm not doing it for money. You know, if I can make money for the platforms and they pay me a cut, I'll take the money. I don't take money from people. Um, and I say whatever I want. And I love when I watch TikTok and people say, well, I'm going to probably lose followers when I say this. I don't think about that. And you know what? I've never lost followers. I just speak my mind. I say what I mean to say. And you're absolutely right. I'm much happier for it. I've said it, I've done it. And if more people were in a position to be able to do that, now I understand there are people that work for people that might cause problems for them in their livelihood. I understand that. So I feel like there are certain people that have to step out and speak for them. I think of myself as one of those people. Say the shit that a lot of people won't say it loud and say it as much as possible. And that's what we got out of musicians. You know, you think, how many people you think told Bob Dylan to shut up and stop doing that?
A
I'll
lot
bet
of
a lot of people. He didn't give a fuck if it wasn't going to sell records. And you know what? He still sold records. It's all about fear. And I think there's a lot of people in this country right now that are musically inclined that are fearful because they're young and they're trying to start their career and trying to start make money so that they can live their life and they're afraid somebody's going to take it away from them. At some point, you got to set this fear aside and say, I'm going to do what's right, not what's going to be profitable. And I'm a firm believer you just do what's right and you keep doing what's right. And if there is money to come to you, if there is fame to come to you, it will come just by virtue of you being authentic and true.
Yeah, I think it would be hard for a Bob Dylan or a Joni Mitchell to make it nowadays because the corporate has choked
Yeah.
it up so much that they're pretty careful what they release, and they're probably a lot of those people that own those organizations aren't like David Geffen. They're not like, left leaning like they used to. A lot of them are probably, you know, and billionaires like now. I mean, that's what you have a lot of it do. I mean, back in the day, an artist was able to have artistic freedom, you believe with them or not. I mean, there are a lot of people that like, somebody, singing like Dylan that necessarily didn't necessarily believe his beliefs, but, they were a fan of his music. They didn't try to censor him. And I think with a lot of it now, with this country, you're having people like, this administration is going after people like Jimmy Kimmel, even freaking all these people that, aren't Sean Hannity. That's what they're doing. So if that you don't think that doesn't translate to the music industry, you're crazy because the music industry doesn't want to touch anything that's going to hurt their profits because what little they got nowadays because they don't sell albums.
We'll tell you this, and I think I can safely say this for what little connection I have to it. Um, if Prince were around right now, I dare anybody to say, Prince, don't do this. Prince, do this. Prince would have done whatever the fuck he wanted. He didn't give a shit. He didn't give a shit to the point where the record company said, you're going to do this and this. And he said, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. And he started one of the first online sales. And he made more money even though he sold less records. He stood on his integrity and his ideas, and he didn't take shit from other people. I'd be willing to bet if he gave in and did what he was supposed to do all along the way, he might have been bigger than Michael.
Oh, he was better than
Uh,
Michael.
he was
Yeah.
better than Michael in many ways. Michael Jackson was the premier showman. There's no question. But if you've ever seen a Prince show, he was comparable.
Yeah, Prince reminds me of who reminds me of Prince modern day is he's not as big as him, but I think he's very good, and that's Lenny Kravitz. I mean, because the guy does what,
Yeah,
Prince does. He writes his own song, plays his own instruments. I mean, he's not as big as Prince, but he had a pretty good run. Yeah, Prince was brave because he fucking changed his name to a fucking symbol nobody could realize. He went to a fucking award show with the word slave on there. And he got a lot of shit for that, but when the record companies own you and you're shit, what are you? You're an indentured servant, i.e. slave. You're owned by them, and I get what he was saying about that. And it's sad that the record company has that. I mean, there's a lot of artists that you think you're a rock and roll star and you make a lot of money. Like, oh, you made a lot of money. No, a lot of that goes to the record company, and they fucking charge you to
most of it.
and they do it back. I mean, that's why a lot of them are afraid to like nowadays is because well you can make a lot of money but don't piss us off or back in the day too you'd hear about these bands giving the record company these albums and now nobody cares about albums, it's singles. I mean it's like singles. I mean you used to have a band that would give them an album and and it started this in the 80s too. A lot of the bands I listened to, a lot of the stuff they would put out, they'd have like three or four singles, but a lot of it would be filler. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of it, they do that. now to where they don't necessarily do the filler because a lot of bands that are still around like that, they just release a single here and there. They don't release albums. They don't have to put that filler. But I don't know. A lot of shit that's called filler, I love. A lot of what they call filler. Some people call it
I
filler
do
on
too.
tracks. I mean, a lot of that shit's great. And some of the bands I like, I think a lot of their freaking so-called filler deep tracks are better than their fucking hit singles because I don't hear them 24 hours a day.
Well, and who decided their filler? It wasn't the artist that decided
God
they were filler.
damn. Yeah,
It was the executive said, "Well, this one's good, that one's not good. We'll
yeah.
promote this one, and this one will just be filler." And you're right. I've heard, um, like this goes back to a different era. I grew up in the '60s and '70s. I love Elton John, and probably one of the first albums I ever bought was Elton John's "Don't Shoot Me, I'm a Piano Player." And there were hits on there like Crocodile Rock and stuff like that. But there were other songs on there that you never heard, like Midnight Creeper or Teacher Eye or whatever. And those were great songs too. We were fed what they wanted us to be fed. For somebody like Prince, when he walked away from the record company, when he changed his name to a symbol, when he put slave on the side of his face, every one of those things were a potential marketing catastrophe, but he still did it. And you know what? He still fucking beat him.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about that too. You talk about hell, look at Kiss. They released Detroit Rock City and they put Beth at the B side. They thought Detroit Rock City would do it, which is a great song, but Beth is what got all the airplay. You had bands do that. You had DJs do that. They would play the B side, and sometimes the B side was bigger than the so-called A side.
Oh, yeah.
But now everything's controlled. I mean, even when you, I mean, I don't really listen to the radio anymore, but it seems like there's no more DJs. It's all just, a computer doing stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you would have a DJ would put on a deep track, he would put on Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, go have a smoke or two, and In the Gata Vita, just stuff like that. But now everything is like on the radio that, I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're going through the radio and it's the same shit. And it's the same shit different wise. And then you have a Sirius XM radio, they're like that too. And it's by design because they have another channel that you can get called Deep Tracks. So
Yeah.
it's all computerized now. You don't have that human intervention, and I miss that because I remember even growing up in the '80s. There was a station here in San Antonio called Zeppelin, but they would have this thing called 70s at 7, and I loved it because I was a kid. I was just really getting into Zeppelin and Kiss and stuff like that, and they would put on Detroit Rock City and then stuff like that, and it was like it wasn't the single version; it was the album track. And to
Right.
me, when you go to album tracks, I think that's what's missing is that you have everything so manufactured now that you can't have a Bob Dylan and you can't have a Prince because the record, I mean, it just won't allow it. You got to have that cookie cutter hit because everybody has a 2 minute attention span nowadays.
I'll give you a couple B sides that ended up becoming hits and weren't intended to be hits. You talked about the Stones. Um, their Let It Bleed album. They came out with the song Honky Tonk Woman, which was a big hit.
Yeah.
But you know what the B side of that was? You
I,
can't always get what you want.
wow. That just shows you how great that band is. Wow.
You know
So
what
the
the
B
B
side was,
side?
B side
You
was
know
you
what the
can't
B
get what
side
you
to
want.
Hey Jude was?
Oh, I know this one. I don't know. Tell me. I think I know this one.
Revolution.
Wow.
And here's an interesting one. With Queen, they had the song We Are the Champions. You know what the B side to that is? I'm sure you do.
We will rock you.
We Will Rock You. And what ended up happening is radio stations took We Will Rock You and they edited We Are the Champions to it and made it one song. And it was fucking awesome. It was absolutely awesome. But we don't get that opportunity now because people aren't putting out art. What they're putting out currently is vending machine music. Oh,
Yeah.
here's a good one. Listen to that. We buy that, we suck it up, and then we move to the next one. And some of these people, some of these artists, and some of these songs really meant something. And we know now that they stick around for decades and decades and still mean something to somebody. I'm hoping maybe just because I'm old and I don't understand it and I don't get it that we have some music like that, but I'm not sure we do.
Yeah, and you talk about those songs like that. There's a couple that come to mind about that, one song goes into another. And when you hear it, even on Sirius XM radio, they don't play it together. One
Right.
of them is there's a song by Def Leppard called Bringing on the Heartache. And it was a big hit in the 80s. And they had the song after it is an instrumental called Switch 760 or 360, Switch 360, which is an instrumental. And so when you hear that, to me, my mind wants to hear that second part. Then they cut it off, and it just drives me fucking nuts. The same
Yeah.
thing is with Led Zeppelin, Heartbreaker, and Living Loving May. There's like, these two songs go together. Kiss with Detroit Rock City going and King of the Nighttime World. I guess I grew up on album rock, and it just like artists don't have that. I mean, they're lucky to get a 2 minute song on the radio nowadays, not to mention a 7 minute epic with two songs. So it's like I think people are thirsty for that, and I really think that's why music sales are down because artists aren't given that creativity. I mean, a lot of them have it on YouTube, but I'm going to be honest with you, there's millions of people on YouTube. I mean, there's millions of people that probably deserve record deals and multi-million dollar tours. But there's so much competition right now, and now you got AI going in there that the music, I mean, it just new inspirational music is just dead. And I think that's why a lot of us, and I'm one of them. I mean, I listen to stuff that I grew up with, and what I do now, and I've done in the recent years, is I listen to bands now that were around when I was growing up that I didn't really give a chance.
Right.
I listen more to them now. Like there was these
Yeah.
bands in high school that I didn't like because I'll say it, they weren't pretty enough because I like the hair bands, and some of the hard stuff. I listen to those now. I mean, I didn't really care for Iron Maiden back in the day. I like them now. Judas Priest. I go back and because to me, that's real. I wasn't a big Rush fan, but hell, I can listen to Bob Dylan. I can now listen to Geddy Lee because he ain't got what you call a great voice. But I can listen to that stuff because to me, that's authentic.
That's not always the voice or the production. It's sometimes the message. And if somebody's
Yeah.
created something with a good message, you learn to. I mean, Bob Dylan doesn't have a great voice. Just, but it doesn't matter because it's the whole vibe of the thing, the tune. He wrote great songs, though. I think one of his best songs, in terms of a song, not necessarily a message, but kind of a message too, that has got one of the simplest, best melodies ever, is "Don't Think Twice."
Mm.
I've heard other people do it, and I go, "That's a fucking good song, no matter who does it." And Bill or Bob Dylan had a horrible voice, but it fit what was going on. And it isn't about the voice or the prettiness of the face or anything like that. It's about the message. And that's what I wonder about today. Are there messages or are there just words that sound good together?
It's like you said, it's Twinkie. It's like stuff. It's not that meat and potato stuff that sticks to your ribs, so to speak. It's just that pure sugar that goes right through you. I mean,
It
it's
really
just.
is.
I mean, even Taylor Swift's guilty of that. Like, I'm not and I think that's by design because I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan. But when I hear it's me, I'm the pro. I mean, that's a catchy tune.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, when she was country, I think her stuff was more in that era that does it because she did some songs like she did. Like I remember when I first saw her, she was just a little girl, and she had a song called Tim McGraw. I'm a big Tim McGraw fan. I think Tim McGraw and Faith Hill are great.
I like
Um,
Faith Hill better.
oh yeah, yeah, Faith Hill. When they replaced Carrie Underwood with her, I was like, man, I can quit watching this stuff. But I mean, I like both of them. But it was just like she had a song called Tim McGraw, and then I remember back then I used to DJ, and she had these other songs about "Marry Me, Romeo" or something. I mean, that shit was some songwriting.
Yeah. She's a
And
good,
then
great songwriter.
she went pop, and she just totally just. I mean, she's a young woman. She's out there doing her thing. Maybe, this is what she wants to do. She wanted to be a pop star. Hey, good for her. But to me, and I think a lot of country fans will agree with that, it's like her best stuff was when she was country. But that's talking to an old guy who likes country music more than he does pop. So, what do I fucking know?
Years and years ago, my mom was a big country fan, and we were watching some show, one of those cable country shows where they interview people, and they brought her on, and she did a song, and my mom said to me, "Is you watch that girl? She's going to do something." I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, mom. She's going to do something." Of
Yeah,
course,
I
my
became
mom died in 2010, but she was absolutely right about that. Here's what I'm thinking about Taylor Swift. You're a talented songwriter, you're a talented singer, you put on the shows, you got billions of dollars in the bank.
Yeah, why
What if you
not?
said, what if you said, fuck it, I'm just going to send some messages from here on out. I got enough to live for the rest of my life. I've created my level of fame. I'm like Prince or somebody like that. I'm not comparing the two, but when it comes to money and fame and stuff like that, she got nothing to worry about. Maybe she steps it up a different way and goes into the more protest type things and make a difference in that respect. I don't know. Maybe it's easy for me to say, but um, if I had $1 billion in the bank, that's what they call in my neighborhood "fuck you" money,
Yeah,
and I'd be telling a lot of people to fuck you.
yeah. I became a fan of Taylor Swift when CMT did this thing called Crossroads, and they'd have a country artist play with a rock band, and she played with Def Leppard, and the girl was wailing. I mean, she was younger at the time, but man, that girl knew the shit. And I was like, well, she obviously likes rock, but she's a throwback to what artists used to be. She's out there playing malls, getting that stuff out there. And I remember Richard Marx, he said one of his biggest regrets is he had a chance to either produce her or do something. And he turned it down because he was too busy. And he said he regrets that. I mean, and Richard Marx, that's another artist we got to talk about, singer-songwriters, that, they're no, I mean, I read his book and everything. And a lot of the bands that I listened to in the 80s, hair bands, he had a couple of them he did. And it's like, you have a lot of those artists that, they have a few hits here and there, but, they're very more instrumental behind the scenes. I mean, that's something too. It just shows you
Yeah.
their talent. But, yeah, he had a chance to uh, be involved with Taylor Swift and he turned that down. And it's kind of like Gene Simmons, he discovered Van Halen and everybody told him, oh, they'll never be big. They'll never be big. So he sold their contract. Well, he fucked that up, didn't he?
Yeah, he fucked that up. Richard Marx is interesting. My brother and my sister-in-law love Richard Marx. They'll
He's
go see
great.
him anywhere. And I've never been a huge fan of Richard Marx. I was in an era when I got kids and family, I wasn't really paying attention to music. I know his songs, and he's got some genuinely hit songs. I never really related to Richard Marx until I saw him on TikTok interviewing people. I go, this is a normal, good dude.
He's got a
So
good
then I
podcast.
started listening. Yeah, he does have a great podcast, and plus he seems like a genuinely decent human being, which is rare enough to find in the world at large, let alone the music business.
You know who he was married to? Did you ever see Staying Alive, the John Travolta movie with the sequel to Saturday Night
Yeah.
Fever? It was the one that everybody hated. I loved it because I loved Travolta back then. But he was with it was about them. It was about dancing and stuff. And Travolta, I always liked Travolta since Grease and stuff, and Welcome Back Kotter because my babysitter was obsessed with him. And it was a cheesy movie. It had there Frank Stallone sang a lot of the songs, but it had Fiona Hughes, she's on General Hospital, really good looking brunette. She's still on there to this day. She was a dancer, and there was a other girl that he was with that he just always pissed on and just stood her up and everything. Her name was Cynthia Rhodes, and
Yeah.
they were married together. But Cynthia Rhodes was also in a movie with Tom Selleck and Gene Simmons called Runaway, which was a good movie, and she had such good hits. But oh boy, Richard Marx, he got divorced. You know who he's with now?
Yeah, I know who he's with.
I mean, my God, you talk about watching MTV as a kid and just, not caring what she had to say, but Daisy Fuentes, she's still smoking. So, oh boy's been living right, evidently. He's good friends
Yeah,
with
something about
Scott with Daisy
da-
Fuentes. So,
I'm gonna say this: Daisy Fuentes. I believe she's Cuban.
yeah,
She's 59 years old. She still looks good.
yeah, she
Richard
does.
Marx still looks good. I don't even know how old he is. He's got to be
Yeah, he's about the
into
same
his
age.
late 60s.
Yeah, I'd tell anybody that if they're a big Richard Marx fan or whatever, get his book. I read his book and stuff, and his podcast is pretty good too. And you know who has a really good podcast too that I really liked? I don't know if you remember the Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
Billy Corgan, he's got a podcast too, and he's interviewed a lot of people. He has Penn Jillette on there, who I really think is great. And but he's had I hear Billy Corgan, and he was like grunge, one of the biggest grunge bands there was. He's a fucking hair metal fan. He's had Paul Stanley on there. He's had the guys from Rat, and he's a fan. because I think what the music industry did in the 80s is like, oh, you can't be a grunge fan of like hair metal, which hair metal's a stupid name. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like it's all these people. I mean, I liked Metallica, I liked Poison. It's rock and roll to me. You can like
Yeah.
steak and cheesecake, and it's just cool to see a Richard Marx interview a Paul Stanley interview. Somebody, somebody that's not necessarily a pop star or whatever. That's what music is, a universal fucking language.
There's something else about Billy Corgan. I'm surprised if you don't know about it, knowing your love for wrestling. There
Yes.
is a TV show, I think, on Netflix. Billy Corgan's a big wrestling fan. And there was a big wrestling organization back in the day in the
The oldest.
Southwest, Southeast. The oldest one? Yeah. I used to watch it when I was down in Arizona, but it's called the NWA. Well, the NWA with the research or insurgents of WWE pretty much died on the vine.
Yeah.
Billy Corrigan bought the name. That's all he really bought was the name NWA, National Wrestling Association. And he started his own wrestling company. And it's a smaller production, but they had a TV show about him building it up and creating characters and stuff. And it was really pretty interesting. So you may want to watch that if you haven't already.
Yeah, I've seen him and I saw him. He talks about that. The NWA. I know we're gonna get a little wrestling talk here, but the NWA goes back to the 1900s. Luthez,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what Ric Flair was until Ted Turner bought him and he changed to WCW. But yeah, he. I saw an interview with Billy Corgan. He's interviewing Gene Simmons, and he said that Smashing Pumpkins was so huge in the 90s that he and that's when Kiss got back together that he got to fucking go to the concert and watch them on the side. Like motherfucker. If I'm not jealous of your hair, now this. Now he's bored like me. So, but yeah, Billy Corgan seems like a good guy. I mean, he does. He, like I
He
said, Smashing
does.
Pumpkins wasn't one of my favorite bands because his voice, another thing. But I mean, as I get older, I like them more. But yeah, I've heard about his love for wrestling. So, I mean, and people give him shit for that, but it's what he likes to do. He's got, like you said, he's got fuck you money. So fuck you if you don't like it, right? I have to check that
Well,
out. It's on Netflix.
I think it's on Netflix.
Look it
But
up.
yeah, it was really interesting. And Billy Corrigan's another one like Prince and all these people who've
Oh
gotten
yeah.
to the point where they say, I'm doing whatever the fuck I want. You don't like it. I had we're going to wrap it up here in a moment. I had a moment like that just a couple days ago. I was scrolling through TikTok and there was this little girl, and people give me shit about calling her a little girl because she's a woman and she's like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And she was trying to do TikTok and she had 7,000 followers. And she told a story about how some friends of hers, either from work or for school, saw that she was doing TikToks and were shaming her for it because she's not pretty enough. And it really hit home to me because I know when I started doing TikTok, I'm a 60-year-old guy sitting in my living room talking shit. And a lot of people felt the same way about me. Well, I just said, fuck it. I'm going to keep doing it for 5 years. Now I got a few followers. And I told her that. I said, don't listen to that bullshit. Just keep doing what you're doing and you'll be fine. And then it really kind of irritated me. So then I did a TikTok and I can get a number of followers to listen. And I said, I told the story that I just told. And I said, here's what I want you to do. This girl talking about happy stuff, talking about helping people with depression and that sort of stuff. We need those people out there. We don't need some old man talking shit all day. We need that too. And so I want you to go out and I want you to follow her. Well, 2 days later, she's now at 23,000 followers. And my video of that has 120,000 views.
Oh wow.
So go ahead. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying if you are in a position to help some people that are worthy of being helped, you should help them. And the fact that she's got 23,000 followers now isn't about just me. It's about everybody who saw it and felt the same way. Um, if you're in a position to do some things, you should do some things. There's probably more things I could do, and I don't even realize it as yet. But as I go along and I find out, and if something positive can be done with a platform, we have a responsibility to fucking do it. Some people say you're not pretty enough. Well, I got to tell you, nobody ever said it to me, but I'll guarantee you there's plenty of people said, oh, he's not handsome enough to do this. Well, fuck you. I'm going to do it anyway. And that's what this girl is doing. And I'm proud of her for doing it.
Yeah, those people talking shit to her like that, they're not her friends. Fuck them.
Yeah.
So yeah, be the bigger person. We got enough fucking dumbasses and red hat wearing mouth breathers in this fucking world. Life's too short, what I mean? It's like people give me shit, and I watch Young and the Restless in General Hospital because I watched them with my grandparents. And people are like, "You watch that shit?" I go, "Fucking, I watch pro fucking wrestling, dude."
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a little guest here. Say hi, Isla. Can't get my camera there. My camera. See, say hi, Isla. Say hi to Boomer. There you go. You see him?
I see him. Well, most of them. You
Camera.
got the
There
green
you go.
screen. There you go.
Hi. Say hi, Boomer. Hi, Boomer. This is Isla. She's my co-host. She's up there just hanging out with me. So yeah, I mean, spend time with your family, you love your dogs, but don't let it's like the good old Texan, one of my favorite Texans that said, "Don't let the bastards get you down." And you can't
Nope.
because life is too fucking short.
Whether you're a protester in Minnesota, whether you're a musician, or whether you're a TikToker, if somebody tells you that you can't do it, fuck you. You can. Don't listen to them. They don't matter. Just do your shit. Just do
Don't be
your
afraid
shit.
because that's what they want you to do. They want you to be afraid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I'm going to wrap things up for the take a break segment with Gen X Jace and me, Boomer 2. So, Jace, thanks for sitting down and talking for a little bit and giving us a chance to take a break. I don't know that we really took a break because we went political and music and all that stuff, but I've said it for my show, and I will assume it applies to this show. Um, Jace and I will do whatever the fuck we want, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and if you don't think that there's enough political talk, well, Mike does this freaking show every night, so once a week we can take a break, even though technically we don't really do all the time because I mean, as long as we got a voice, we're gonna fucking use it.
Well, that's it. People will say, well, why are you doing this? You should be doing, like I say, I do a fucking podcast every day. I do anywhere from 5 to 10 TikToks a day. I'm not doing less TikToks. It's not taking a break for me because I'm still doing my shit. It's taking a
Mhm.
break for you to give something else to listen to. So
And
you
Mike,
know,
you want to see me in twice a week now, so it's just your excuse to bring me on twice. Like, look at this
well,
mug, because it's
there
like
you
a fucking
go.
reflection of the beauty we both have.
Yeah, exactly. We're caving to the popularity based on appearances.
Yes, sir.
I have no shame at all. All right. Well, thank you, Jason. For those of you listening, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. We will talk to you again next week.